Hi, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much for joining our session today. How to get published in Britannica Journal of Social Sciences and Humanities. We are going to share some tips with you. Yeah. My name is Wong Sulwan, and I am the moderator as well as the editor-in-chief of this journal. I'm also the third speaker, the last speaker for this webinar. First of all, let me just briefly go through with you our program for today. It is divided into 3 parts. We have 3 speakers and we will have 2 Q&A slots. Here are some reminders for today's session. Please turn off your microphone. Yeah, so you will be muted throughout the session. If you have any questions, you can leave your questions in the chat box. So your questions would be answered on the spot, by our journal officer, and selected questions would be passed on to our speakers. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our first speaker, Dato' Abu Bakar Saleh. He is our Chief Executive Editor. He's the manager of all 3 Pertanika journals. So JSSH is one of the 3 journals in UPM under Pertanika umbrella. He was the former TNC PI. He is also a former professor of biochemistry. Now the next fact is very interesting about him, really, really very interesting. It's about his H index. His H index is 41. 41, not 14, 41. So this speaks volumes of his experience, his publications, and his research work. And he has also been acknowledged as the top 2% of the world researchers in biotechnology. Without further ado, may I invite Dato' Abu Bakar Saleh to share with us in this webinar. Dato', the floor is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and good afternoon. Thank you very much, Prof. Wong, for a kind and generous introduction. As stated by Prof. Wong, I'm the manager of Britannica. We have 3 journals under Britannica, and this webinar happens to be the first, and we are focusing on the social science cluster. So Britannica is more than 40 years old, okay? So can we go to the next one? Okay, so UPM, as I said just now, after 40 years, later on it was compartmentalized to 3 journals, and one of the journal is called Pertanika Journal of Social Sciences and Humanities, and it is about 27 years old already. So it is quite it has a fairly strong foundation. Next, please. Okay, the objective of the journal, Pertanika Journal, basically is to provide a platform for UPM staff, researchers, to disseminate their research discoveries, their research findings, and also at the same time publicize the achievement of UPM to the communities. Of course, specifically, PJSSH aim for excellence sustained by a responsible and professional approach to journal publishing. PJSH strives to provide its authors with comprehensive coverage of the world's scholarly research. It's very important that we are saying that it is world scholarly research. This is not a local journal. This is supposed to be an international journal. But at the same time, we want to take advantage of it as staff of UPM to be part of this global communities. Next, please. Now, the big question is the journal index. Yes, the journal is indexed. The main one is called is Scopus by Seeger, and as you know, UPM recognized Scopus publication. We are actually also in the Web of Science collection, but it is called the ESCI, Emerging Sources Science Citation Index. We have not achieved the coveted JCR indexing. See? So we are really working hard towards it, and we are hoping that you will help us also to achieve this next level of citation. But Scopus is recognized by UPM, and so it is a good opportunity, especially for the young lecturers to sort of practice their writing skills and get it published in the journals. All right, next, next please. Okay, the scope, I won't dwell into the scope because it will be discussed later on by my colleagues. But it was supposed to cover all the expertise within UPM. But along the way, there is some diversification. But we are trying to be more focused now. So there might be a few changes here and there in the next few months or so. But currently, these are the scope of social sciences and humanities. Next. Don't worry if you miss some of the write up in here, because we will give you the copies of these slides. No problem. Now, as you being introduced earlier by the lady herself, Professor Wong Sulan is the editor-in-chief of PJSSH, a very committed lady. I work very well with her. Very nice. And then age index of 17, and apparently this is very high in social science, so she must be doing a lot of good research here. So somebody that can really help you all in getting your paper written and published. Thank you. Next. Editorial board member is also reflects the global nature of the journal. We have about 30% of international editorial board members. Next. I am the so-called manager, right? So actually, I serve full-time. I'm supposed to be trained in editorial practice, but I wouldn't challenge you on that. But I managed to learn the trade very quickly, and I think I have sort of somehow managed to adapt myself into this job as a manager. Yeah, so apparently one manager can only do 3 journals, so I'm doing the full 3 journals. I'm managing the full 3 journals at the moment. Thank you. How do I get my paper published? The question. Well, the first thing that I have to emphasize again and again, because you have to write the paper. To write a paper, you need data. To get data, you need to do research. So first, you have to do research, write the papers, and then you submit the manuscript. Next. The journal is published online in the journal website. It's open access. You do have to pay to read the papers. So please read please open up our website and read the papers. The manuscript can be written in English or Bahasa Malaysia. But Bahasa Malaysia, we usually sort of prefer that it should be in the area of language itself. Most of the other topics should be written in English because you want it to be disseminated worldwide. Otherwise, your readership will be very, very narrow. Okay. So these are some of the. But all papers that are written in Bahasa should have titles, abstract, and keyword in Bahasa Malaysia. But this you can see in the instruction to authors. So please do read the instruction to authors. Next. So the authors also, we also diversify the affiliation of authors, about 30 to 40% international authors, And the contributors need to fully comply with the ethics of authorship, mainly authenticity, no plagiarism. Papers are not filed to other journals. Next. The publication process, as you can see, we have two-step processing. One is to submit your paper through Google form, and then we have what we call the editorial screening. At this stage, the paper can be accepted for further processing, or it could be rejected at this stage. Once a paper is accepted, you can then submit through a system called Scholar One. You will be informed about the link, and then once you get into Scholar One, then the review system will begin, and the detail of it will be explained later. After the review process, the paper can then be rejected or accepted. Once accepted, it will go to pre-press and then for publication. How long does it take for this process? Next. Next. The process itself, the first stage, we expect you to be able to get some result on the acceptance, or otherwise within 90 days. Seems like a long time, 90 days, almost 3 months, but actually we have checked, this is about the right duration for most of the credible journals. There are journals who claim they can do it in 1 week. I'm not sure how they can do it. If you are going to do what you call voluntary process, review process, it's impossible. Okay, and once it is accepted, you will be informed. Yeah, publication in the website will be within 30 to 180 days after that. Yeah, so you can rest assured that we can publish your work in a timely manner. Next. How much does it cost to publish in Britannica journals? Okay, there is a charge, unfortunately. We would like it to be free, but there is a charge. Next. For Malaysian authors, it's 750 ringgit Malaysia. For foreign authors, it's USD 250 per paper. It will only be paid after the paper is accepted. But recently, Jawatankuasa Penerbitan UPM has agreed on a discount for UPM staff, and now the cost is RM 500 ringgit per paper. Okay, so there is a discount. Okay, and the discount is based on on the affiliation of the corresponding author. Thank you. Next. Publication date. Pertanika Journal Social Sciences and Humanities is published in March this month, so you should be getting a new issue soon, very soon this month, in June, September, and December. Next. This is the office of Pertanika. It's a full-time unit that looks into the publication of the 3 journals. So you can contact us here or come and visit us here. Thank you. Next. So your research, as I said, is incomplete if the results are not disseminated. So you may work very hard with your research, but without your research being disseminated to the communities, you might as well don't do research. Nothing happens to you. So good luck and thank you. I will allow the next speaker, Prof. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dato, for your sharing useful information about GSSH, about the entire process. Now, we actually have a slot for Q&A. I have reminded everyone that your microphone is muted, will be muted throughout this session. So if you have any questions, please type it in the chat box. So far, I don't see any questions in the chat box. If we don't have any questions, we can move on to the second speaker, unless there are some questions that you might be wanting to put up now. So I think so far there is no questions.
We can answer it later. You can always come later.
Yeah, we can always come back later. Yeah, maybe the questions you think of the questions later. So we will now move on to the second part. Yeah, which is by our journal officer, Madam Umi Fairuz Hanafi. Yeah? So she will share with us about the process of submitting your manuscripts.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Dato'. Okay, Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. Good afternoon to all participants in today's webinar. So I will now go in depth into the article preparation for submission to PGSSH and publication process involved. But first, I will elaborate on the online submission process. Okay, before submitting to PGSSH, the first thing that you should do is to check whether the scope of your article is covered by the journal. So in this case, PGSSH covers most of the topics that you can find in social sciences and humanities. You can refer to the scopes listed here. There are about 19 scopes under social sciences and 9 scopes under humanities that are covered by PGSSH. Okay, so what are the type of papers that we accept? These are the 3 main written papers that we accept, which are empirical papers, review papers, and short communications. For empirical papers, it must present new and significant findings that contribute to the advancement of the research area. And for review papers, it must provide systemic overviews, evaluations, and interpretations of research in a given field. And for short communication, it should report new development, significant advances, and novel aspects of experimental and theoretical methods and techniques. Okay, so now you have your manuscript ready. Then how are you going to submit your manuscript? And how should you format the manuscript? Okay, after you have prepared the manuscript and confirmed that the scope of your article is covered by PGSSH, you are now ready for submission. So authors are advised to read the instruction to authors carefully at on the Britannica website. And the authors have to make sure that the manuscript had adhered to the format and also the guidelines. Then the author can go to the online submission link and submit their manuscript via the Google form. Okay, owing to the volume of manuscript received by PGSSH, we have devised a 2-step online submission system. So the first step is submission via the Google form. The manuscript must be submitted in Word file format, and the authors are required to complete the information needed. Then the manuscript will then undergo editorial screening, and the decision will be sent to the authors by email. Okay, don't worry if you miss out the link. You can actually browse our official website and select PGSSH. When you click the submission button here at the home page, you will then be directed to the link for submission to Google Form. So just follow the instructions. Okay, authors always ask how will they know if their submissions are complete. So actually authors can rest assured as they will receive Google Form feedback emails once the submission is successful. Okay, after the submission process, now the manuscript will undergo the editorial review process. So what is the editorial review process? Editorial screening can be divided into 2 processes. The first process is pre-screening process that is done by journal officers, which are Ms. Zuhaila and me. And we will look into these 4 criteria. We will check the similarity index, and then we check the format, language, and also the documents received during the submission. So the second process is the content screening process done by the editorial board and also the editor-in-chief, which is performed. This is not an in-depth review, but it is to see whether the manuscript has the merit to be published in Britannica Journal. So these are the criteria for the content screening process. The first one is relevance to journal needs or novelty or impact. The second one is justification and methods. And the last one is presentation quality. Okay, later on, Prof will describe this criteria in detail. Okay, let me elaborate more on the criteria that we look at during the pre-screening process. The first criteria is the originality of the manuscript. So in Britannica, we use turn-in software to check the similarity index with a particular setting. The similarity percentage must be 20% or below for it to pass the initial screening. And sometimes turn-in could not detect plagiarism. So what we will do is the journal officers will do a manual search of the manuscript title in the search engine. Okay, the second criteria is adherence to the format. We have outlined a few formats for the authors to follow. In the instruction to authors, where the authors can refer to Britannica formats such as abstract format and length, IMRAD format, and manuscript length. And for citation and references format, we insist the author to follow APA 7th edition. Okay, this is an example of the abstract format. Okay, for regular article, the maximum number of words is about 250 words. And for similar to for review papers, 250 words. And for short communication is about 100 words. And the keywords must be organized in alphabetical order. Okay, the layout of the manuscript needs to follow IMRAD format. Okay, this is the standard article writing format, where the text begins with the introduction, and sometimes there's a literature review section under the introduction, and then followed by methods or methodology or experimental design, and then results and discussion, conclusion, acknowledgement, and references. So the results and discussion section can be combined and also separated depending on its suitability. Okay, this is the example of the table. The table number and legend must be at the top of the table, and the table does not have vertical lines. Okay, this is the example of the figure. The legend is written at the bottom of the figure, and the author have to make sure that a clear image is used, preferably a high-resolution image in 300 dpi. Okay, the next criteria is language. The authors have to make sure that the manuscript is free from errors in terms of grammar, spelling, and punctuation. Actually, authors can get assistance from a professional English editor to proofread their manuscript. PJSSH also accepts manuscript written in Bahasa Malaysia, but still the language must be readable and also proofread. Manuscripts that are not readable, linguistically hopeless, will be rejected straight away. Okay, the last criteria for the pre-screening process is documentation. During submission to Google Form, only the manuscript is needed. But once the manuscript has passed the content screening, the author will need to upload both manuscript and declaration form to the Scholar One system. So all the information and guidelines to submit to Scholar One system will be sent to the author together with the decision email. Okay, sometimes we also receive a copyright agreement from the authors, but actually it is only required after the manuscript has been confirmed for acceptance. Okay, I think I've done my part for the article preparation, submission, and pre-screening process. The next slides will be presented by EIC, Prof. Wong Sulwan, on the editorial screening and review process. So if you have any questions, it will be answered after sharing session with Prof. Wong. Thank you.
Thank you, Umi. Thank you, Umi, for sharing that. And so I will be the last speaker. So this is the last part of our webinar, yeah. And we are expected to finish by 4:30. Now let me continue from where Umi stopped, yeah. Now let's look at the content screening by the editorial board. So what happens at this stage here? When the papers are screened at the JO is our journal officers here, they will do the screening in terms of plagiarism, is their similarity index. So currently our similarity index is, we are at this threshold 20%, yeah? And papers that have met all those criteria will then be sent to me. So papers that I receive, yeah, will go through this process. of content screening. What is it that we look at for content screening? Let me go through with you what we look for, yeah, at this stage. First of all, relevance to journal needs, yeah, novelty and impact. What is it that we want here? We're looking at our originality. How new is your work? Yeah, the novelty. Is it something that would be very groundbreaking? Is it something that would actually have high citations? Yeah. So we want a research article, or we want a manuscript that would be very impactful in that area. So as you know, just now, Baka has shared with you, the areas that we cover. So in your area, what is it that is so novel? What is it that is that would make an impact? And of course, we also would check for the scope, whether it's within the scope of JSSH. Yeah. So I have received papers. Yeah, we have papers which are not related at all to journal to JSSH. For example, papers about construction. This is totally not related to JSSH. So please make sure that you are looking at the right area and it aligns with our scope. The next thing that we would be looking at would be justification and methods. What's the motivation? What is the motivation of your research? What is the justification for carrying out this research? Yeah? So this is something that you will have to be emphasizing, because if you can convince the person who is going to do this content screening, so the content screening is either done by me, the EIC, or members of our editorial board who are experts in their areas. Yeah. So if we feel that the paper, the manuscript, yeah, has this strong justification, the motivation is very strong, yeah, for you to conduct this research, yeah, it would then attract our attention to go further about in your manuscript. We also look at the research design. What research design are you looking at? So for journal in this social sciences and humanities, and we always have these two areas, which is quantitative and qualitative. Be specific about the design. So if you say that you are looking at quantitative, is it correlational? Is it experimental? Is it ex post facto? Yeah, qualitative. Would it be grounded theory kind of research? Yeah? Would it be case study? So you have to be very precise in addressing all this in your manuscript. And we would also look at the instrumentation. How would you actually carry out and collect your data? How would your data be collected? We look at the reliability, the validity, yeah, the threats to your design, and so forth. Sampling methods, of course, we want to know how do you select your samples, how many your samples are, who are your samples, where is the location. So these are the things that you have to consider very, very clearly about when you are submitting a manuscript. Of course, I understand that when you submit a manuscript which is in the area of in language, linguistic, yeah, of course you don't have, maybe you'll be looking at doing content analysis of a book, for example. Yeah. So we expect all our authors to know what is required for your area when you are writing a journal paper. And data analysis, of course, we will look at whether your analysis, yeah, your statistical analysis, the types of data that you have collected, does it align with your objective? So I have received also papers, it doesn't even have an objective, no research questions, no hypothesis. Yeah, I don't know what is the purpose of this paper about. So these kind of papers will be rejected. So of course, again, if you are from the language area, you probably won't have hypotheses. So perhaps research questions or the objective. So make all this clear to us about what you are doing. That is what's very important. Yeah. And the third criteria that we look into is presentation quality. So Umi has stressed on the language. So language, either in English or Bahasa Malaysia, we welcome both manuscripts, yeah, but they must be written at a level where it is we can say free of errors, yeah, grammatical errors. Well, one or two, minor grammatical errors is okay, yeah, but not if it's so badly written that we can't even understand. So that would be rejected. However, yeah, there have been papers which is really very interesting, very groundbreaking. There's originality in the study. We may consider your paper, yeah, by giving you the opportunity to have it edited for language clarity. So the first thing that I would actually advise you to do, yeah, is please check on the language. And the next one is meets the journal rigor. So what do you mean by journal rigor? Well, we want to see if your manuscript meets the rigor of a journal paper. You all have written papers in conference, yeah, conference proceedings. There's difference between these two. So if you are looking at a journal, it must reach the level of that rigor for a journal paper, and the word count helps. Word count for our JSSH is 6,000 words. So I have received papers, yeah, manuscripts, which are just like 2,000 words. 3,000 words. These are actually papers I would consider as suitable for a conference paper, but not suitable for a journal. Yeah. So my take would be a good journal paper would be between 5,500 to 6,000 words, not inclusive of references, not inclusive of tables and figures. Yeah. So we don't want also a paper which is just too long. There are some papers I've received is like 13,000 words. Yeah. 10,000 words. So these papers would be returned to the author to be shortened, yeah? And the next thing would be references. So what's so special or what's so important about references? References is where we look at, are you actually citing good papers, good journal articles, impactful journals, yeah? Are they up to date? Or do you have a good mix of references, books, journals, conferences? Yeah. So that is something that I would also take into account. I have received papers which doesn't have any reference. It's just a outright reject at my level. I have also received papers which is just referring to books, reports with no journals. Yeah. So these are the things I think all of us as researchers in UPM, we are aware that we need to cite good references. And from there, when you cite good references, good papers with good high impact factors, yeah, if people read the original source, yeah, they may then will find your paper. And also, we want to see how recent is your references. If it's like 2000, 1999, and no references for newer ones, it shows that it could be an old research that you're researching. There's no, there won't be any citations if you're looking from the aspect of an editor here. So I hope that these are the three areas that we look into when we do the content screening. I'm not an expert in everything. Yeah, my area of expertise is ICT in education. So when we look at papers, yeah, and also our editorial board who assists in our content screening, yeah, generally we look whether this paper fulfills the requirement. There's originality, there's novelty, the justification is strong, methodology is clear to us, the statistic, the way of data collection is clear, and the presentation quality is good. So these are the three areas that we look into when we are doing the content screening. Next. So once the paper, it is approved, yeah, at the editorial screening, passes the hands of the EIC, yeah, the successful authors will be contacted. The JOs will contact you and they will say that this is the link where you can upload your full manuscript. So that's why prior to you submitting it to Pertanika, you will be given a link for this Google form before it goes into our online submission system. So we are currently, Britannica is using Scholar One, yeah? And you're required to submit to Scholar One submission for the review process. So it goes to the next level, which is for review. So this is where the experts help us. The next slides. Now, prior to that, these are the things that you need to consider. Yeah, please read the instructions carefully in Scholar One. You need to upload the manuscript files, yeah, the text, figures, supplementary information. You can check the status of your manuscript in the system, yeah. And this is where the reviewers would then download your manuscript. And revisions after you have received the comments from the reviewers would also be done through our Scholar One system. Next. So how do you know that your submission is completed? Because there's quite technical aspects of submitting your papers into Scholar One. Yeah, you will receive an email notification, and you would be informed of your manuscript ID. So our manuscript ID, yeah, JSSH and whatever number, yeah, 2021. This is what the confirmation would be, telling you that your manuscript has been successfully submitted. So sometimes, yeah, the authors are not so sure whether the submission was successful or not. Please check your email. So make sure that the email is correct, yeah, and also please check your spam. Sometimes it goes into your spam. Next. If you have any trouble, yeah, with the online submission, sometimes yeah, there's technical issues. You can always contact. There are two JOs that we have here, Ms. Zhu and Madam Umi. Yeah? These are the two emails that you can send your queries to, and you will be attended to very promptly. Next. Okay, so now, once already submitted, it has passed the content screening. This is where the peer review process begins. Yeah. So let's look at the next slide. What happens during the peer review? Yeah? So, like all good journals, yeah, we are very rigorous about the peer review. We ensure thorough, objective, and fair review for all our authors. Yeah, and it's done double blind, which means that the reviewer doesn't know who the authors are. The authors are also, yeah, do not know who the reviewers are. So this is to ensure fairness. Next. So who are the reviewers? Yeah, they have been selected based on their expertise. So not everybody can actually become a reviewer. Yeah, you will have to apply to Pertanika. So if you are interested to become a reviewer, please go into our website. Yeah, there are some information about applying to be a reviewer. Yeah, so they're experts in the scientific topics addressed in the articles they review. So we match the expertise of the reviewer with the area of your manuscript, and they provide assessments here on the strengths and weaknesses of your manuscripts. So the reviewer's job is to help improve your manuscript, even if they want to reject it. Right? So they give comments. Yeah, sometimes it really depends on the reviewer. Some reviewers give very constructive comments. Some could be quite brutal in that sense that they don't mean to bash your paper actually, but they want to help you. So I would actually strongly advise you, yeah, to take it in a very positive manner. Yeah? So professional, honest, courteous, prompt, and constructive comments from our reviewers. Yeah. And they must treat your manuscript as confidential, so you don't have to worry. And sometimes, yeah, the reviewer would be able to detect whether there's similarities in your manuscript. So this has happened. Yeah? If we didn't detect it at our level, because you know that in terms of content, we cannot, it cannot check 100%. But this reviewer, who actually is an expert, alerted us, yeah, on similarity of this paper with another paper. So please be careful about the similarity index here, and I can assure you that our reviewers take their job very seriously in reviewing all the manuscripts that they are assigned to. Next. So how many reviewers do we have? Yeah, we have 2 reviewers, minimum of 2 reviewers. We sometimes send it to 3 reviewers. Yeah, but what is important here that I need to stress is we only make a decision once we receive 2 review comments. So every time, yeah, when your paper is submitted, when it's the status has changed in the Scholar One platform, you can see whether it's under review or what is the stage. So under review means that the reviewer has been assigned. And this is what happens, yeah. We will wait for the comments by the reviewer. So let's say the review comes back, yeah. Both give the comments as accept as it is. This is very rare. Accept as it is an excellent journal, yeah, paper. So far, I've not had this before. So if I can get this kind of comments from the reviewer, I'll be very happy. because I can just accept the paper. The most common one would be minor revision plus minor revision. So both reviewers recommend minor. We also have sometimes minor major, yeah, major major. So there's a combination of how the reviewer reacts to your manuscripts. So in any other circumstances, yeah, when I receive the comments from the reviewer, I would read through the comments. I would see whether the comments are fair to you, whether they are an expert in your area, yeah, what would their recommendations be? There would be actually situations, okay, next, when there's a mix, reject minor, reject major. Now, when we have this kind of situations, it doesn't mean that it's a gone case for your manuscript. I still hope. I would be looking at the comments. Is it a fair comment if they suggest a reject? Because there's another reviewer who has actually recommended major or minor, yeah, or could be accepted as is. So I will look at both of these comments, and then if I find that I agree with the reviewer who has given you very positive comments, yeah, the reviewer rejected your manuscripts, maybe a little bit too harsh, not too expert in your area, I would actually then tell my JOs, yeah, okay, let's look for a third reviewer. Let's get a third opinion, yeah. In the situation that if the article is within my area of expertise, I would then be looking at whether the negative comments carry any weight or the positive comments carry more weight, yeah. So we make a decision. There will be a situation that we will be making a decision. And there will be also cases where the manuscripts both are rejected. So we will not be considering to give the third reviewer the manuscript. So it will be a pure reject, yeah. So what happens in this situation here? The review process takes 2 weeks. Previously, it was 3 weeks, yeah, but we want to make sure that you get your papers published timely. I know everybody has KPIs, yeah, we need to meet our KPIs. So we have come up with this first cycle amendment. After the review process, the reviewers are given 2 weeks to review. There will be times when the reviewers ask for extension. We will usually oblige, yeah, because we know that reviewers are very busy people. There's something that I like to stress here. In the system, you would be also given the opportunity to recommend or suggest your own reviewers. Please go ahead. If you have someone in mind whom you know is an expert in your area, yeah, who would be able to give very good quality comments to your manuscript, you can suggest these reviewers, yeah. But we will look into their background, whether they are expert in your area, yeah. We don't want someone who's like your friend or your ex-student, yeah. So we want someone who is objective, who is fair, and after we get this review comments, the JO would then be in touch with you to inform whether your paper has been accepted with amendments or rejected. Now, the first cycle amendment, yeah, this is very important. You are given 2 weeks to do the correction. So please take it very seriously. Why is it 2 weeks? It's how you feel that it's too short, yeah. It's not that we want to make it hard for you, but it's just that we understand you need your papers to be published. So we are trying to help expedite the publication of your paper. In the event, if you feel that you cannot because you're traveling, yeah, you have exams, you have manuscripts to mark, and so forth, please write to us, yeah, write to the JOs, inform us that you need additional time. We will give you that additional time, yeah. We want to make sure that you have enough time to do a very good revision to your manuscript. Now, after you have revised your manuscript, yeah, we would send it back to the same reviewer. So please take note, yeah. Some authors, they take it for granted that the reviewers are not the same, or we don't even send it back to the reviewer, and they don't do a good job in the revision. Every author will be given a table. Yeah, the table will have 2 columns. One on the left-hand side, you are supposed to write out what are the comments from the reviewer, and on the right-hand side, your responses. What are the amendments that you have done? So please be very thorough with your comments. I have seen authors just write, "Thank you, done. Thank you, done." Yeah, I don't want that kind of comments from you as an author. Please be specific. What are the comments that the reviewer have raised. For example, the reviewer said that the problem statement is a little bit loose, it's too general, it's too broad. Please make it more focused. So how do you address this kind of comments? You have to make sure that you give an explanation. Okay, problem statement has been improved. We have added some statistic to support our justification or argument about the problem that we are facing. And then give some examples of the new paragraph or the new sentences that you have inserted into that revised manuscript. Yeah. And after we have received your revised manuscript, yeah, we send it back to the reviewer, and the reviewer will read. So there have been cases the reviewer is not happy with the revision. So that's a very sad thing. Shouldn't happen. So the worst case would be your paper will be rejected by the reviewer, although you have put in so much effort in doing the correction. I have seen comments by the reviewer who says that they have not addressed my comments. The way they addressed my comments were very flimsy. So please show seriousness in doing your revision. Yeah. And if the reviewer wants to give you another chance, we would return the manuscript to you. Okay, and you'll be given 1 week to do the revision. So these are the processes that I have to emphasize very, very clearly here. Please take the review comments very seriously. If you receive the email from our GO that you have been given the opportunity to revise your manuscript, this is an indication that there is a very chance your paper would be published already. Okay, but I have also received emails from authors. They say that, dear editor, we have found that the comments here has been too much for us to handle, and we would like to withdraw. That is something that I hope you will not be doing, because you have gone through the process, yeah, of writing the paper. You have done the revisions, but the comments have been quite negative. Just please follow the instruction now. If you are not able to defend, you feel that this comment is very unfair, you are allowed to rebut. Rebut in the sense that you argue why is it that you disagree with the reviewer. So don't worry about doing a rebuttal. Yeah. So there are times when I have seen the rebuttal from the author, and I say, hey, this is really strong rebuttal from the authors, and I feel that this warrants a publication. This paper, it warrants publishing this paper. So this is where you are going to convince me as the editor-in-chief also. How much work have you put into the revision? How serious you've done the revision, yeah? And how much time you have put into the revision? You're given 2 weeks for the first revision, second revision 1 week. Okay? So next slide. So to sum up the entire process here, okay, let me walk through the 5 steps of peer review process. First of all, the selection of reviewers. We have a very good pool of reviewers, yeah, from Malaysia and also international reviewers, and they are very experienced, yeah. And our reviewers, yeah, they are selected based on their publication track record. So don't worry about how qualified your reviewers are. Yeah? And like I said, yeah, you can actually suggest who your reviewers are. You can, but not necessarily we will take. But there have been cases when we feel that this reviewer is suitable for your manuscript, so we will select the reviewers that you have suggested. Yeah. Now you have to understand in the process of review and for our article, for our JSSH, we rely very heavily on our reviewers. So there have been times when the reviewers agree to accept the invitation to review your paper, but they didn't complete the review. So there's a delay there already. Yeah, there's a delay there. We have to then look for new reviewers. There also have been cases when the reviewers ask for an extension. We would oblige. We would give a little bit more time to the reviewers. Yeah. So the process of getting your papers published depends quite heavily on the availability of the reviewers. So they agree to review or they decline to review. So many times when they review us, they don't have time or they feel that the areas is not something that they are expert in, they would decline right away. So that's something that we appreciate, so because we don't waste time on them in waiting for them to come back to us. Then the next step, which is the third step, the EIC decision making. Like I said, we will then make a decision based on 2 to 3 review reports. There are certain times when I feel that I cannot make a decision. I would also invite our editorial board members to help, whether they can actually give me a suggestion. What would they think about this manuscript? Then the next section would be the amendments on manuscript. So this is, the onus is on you as the author, your responses to the reviewers, how many rounds of review process, So I think basically we don't want to delay too long. We can't be giving you many opportunities to amend the paper. So far, we give you 2 opportunities to revise. If after 2 opportunities, you don't still meet the criteria of the expectations of the reviewer, then there is a high chance your paper will be rejected. And once this paper has been revised, the JOs have checked everything, and it goes into the publication stage. This is where our CEE comes into play. It's queued. The papers are all in queue. So we have a very good number of papers in GSSH, and he will decide what is the composition of the papers that will be published for every issue. So just now we mentioned that for every issue, a maximum of 50 papers. So we will have a good mix of papers from authors from various countries. So I think this actually sums up the entire process of what happens from the day you submit your article to the Google form, and then it comes to the JOs. They will do the screening, and after that, if your paper makes it at that level, it then reaches the EIC's attention. So that would be my part, and then it goes into the review process. So I think basically that's the last slide. Is that correct, Umi? That covers the entire session for today. And we are now at the session where we have Q&A. So I think there are some questions that have been posted. So let me read the first question from Lim Wiping. Penny, Penny. Is there any possibilities of having special edition besides the 4 issues listed annually? So I think this question will be answered by Dato'.
Thank you very much. A special edition or special issues. I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation just now about Britannica moving towards JCR. So basically, there's a need for us to improve the impact of our publication, citation, and so on. And to do that, we need people to read our papers. We need people to be aware of our papers. So apparently now the management have changed the policy on special issues. There is special issue, but the policy has been changed in such a way that only what we call renowned scholars will be invited to sort of contribute for a specific topic for a special issue. Pertanika is not going to accept any more proposals from conferences or similar activities. Does that answer your question?
Right, thank you, Dato'. So I think that's clear. So we have changed a little bit of our policy about special issues. And of course, we have to ensure that the quality is at the same level as our regular issues, and no special for special issues. Some people have this understanding that special issues are a little bit easier to publish. It doesn't work for Pertanika. It's as stringent as regular issues. There's one question that I see in the chat box. It has been answered actually. It's about what whether review papers would be accepted. Let me just elaborate a little bit more about whether we accept review papers for JSSH. Yeah? We do accept review papers. We welcome review papers. But what are the types of review papers here that we want? I would be looking for papers which are systematic review papers. Systematic, I believe that you all know the types of review papers. Yeah? We have bibliometric review papers. Yeah. So I do not accept papers which are just like overview, some perspective. This to me as it looks like an assignment to me actually. But I want to see how is the analysis done. How do you actually review the papers? So if you have read systematic kind of review papers, you will see that there is various steps, very rigorous steps that you go through, yeah, in the selection of the journal articles. Now, I also have seen papers which have been submitted. They say this is a systematic review paper, but there's only 9 papers which are being reviewed. This can't be a review paper if you are only reviewing 9 papers, unless there's a special reason that the criteria has been put in place that only 9 papers out of that 100 papers that you have actually collected, 9 made it to the review process. Yeah. So usually review papers we welcome in a sense because they would attract citations. So please follow the requirements here of a review paper. What is expected of a review paper? I hope that I answered that question. Yeah. Dora Tam, you asked that question. Yeah. So I have we have a lot of time actually. We were supposed to finish at 4:30, and it's 3:56. Not even 4 o'clock. And so far, I don't see any more questions from the audience. Yeah. If we don't have any more questions, yeah, then we can have we can end the session early. Or if there's any more questions coming up, you want to type it in the chat session. There's a question about how do we get the recorded link. Yeah, so all participants who registered for this webinar will be sent the recordings. So don't worry about that. Yeah, then you will get, and we will also share with you the slide presentation if you require. Yeah. So I hope that our session has been clear to you. How do you actually start from the very beginning? Yeah. My advice to all authors here, please submit to Britannica. This is our flagship journal, our own journal, yeah, in UPM. And I hope you know where is our office, yeah. Dato, can you tell us where is the office? Maybe some of you do not know where is the office.
I forgotten that we're working from home. It is supposed to be MTDC complex. Huh? We share the same building as PSP, Putra Science Park.
Okay, so I think you have a rough idea.
First floor, yeah.
First floor. So yeah. Obviously all of us are all working from home, yeah. But when we all go back to office, you're welcome to drop by. And if you have any queries asking what is the status of my article, sometimes I know that every author is very anxious. Once they submit, they are very anxious. When are they going to get the review? Comments, yeah. What has happened to my article? Please send us an email. We are very responsive. My JOs are very responsive in answering all emails that we receive. So we have this feedback form. The address is in the chat box. We invite all the participants here. Please drop or please answer, respond to our feedback form. Yeah. You just can click on it and then you just fill out your information and just respond to a few questions. We'd like to know your views. Yeah. What do you think about our webinar? Has it been useful to you? I hope it has been useful to you. And you know now that who are the people behind JSSH. I think before I joined Pertanika, I have to be very honest with you, I didn't know who are the people inside JSSH. So I think when you know who are the people, they're familiar to you. Yeah, I'm from the Faculty of Educational Studies. Yeah, so I believe there are some of you who know me. We are just very nearby. If you have any queries, yeah. And so I think there are no more questions. I'm not receiving any more questions. We can actually end our session for today. Thank you very much to everybody for making your time here to join us, and I hope this would spur you to make you more interested in submitting your best paper to Britannica. And thank you very much, everyone. See you once again somewhere, sometime.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to all our speakers.